Okay, I'm waiting for who is going to come online. Let's see who we have. Okay, Joshua, I'm busy, don't come. Okay, I'm still waiting for who is going to come online. You know, receive your sense. Okay, let's get started.
The new Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly...
So, according to the request I've gotten, most beginners don't still understand how pen shading is being done. So what I'm going to do here now is a live representation. Like, I'm going to show you most of the things needed to get a good pen shade. Bring my earpiece. So one thing is, okay, let me set this well. One thing we know that the most easiest to use is the arching technique, which is the most commonly used technique in pen shading. I don't really know why there's no one coming online. But we're going to get started. So when they are online, they will be able to see it. So the first is, that is the arching, and which means that just single movement. So firstly, you have to know how you hold your pen. Just put your finger, put the pen, your finger in between your two fingers, and you use your thumb to support it. Then you'll be able to have a good movement and stroke. And you start lightly first. So after this, I'm going to show you an example with one of my recent work that I'm still working on. So always don't forget that whenever you are shading, you have to clean the tip in case you notice any ink around it. You can just rub it this way and you are done. And then you continue with your shading. Then when you add enough pressure, you'll be able to get a darker shade. Be careful, you have to be consistent with your stroke in order not to make a messy kind of shading. Just follow a particular direction and try to master that movement, that is going from your top and swiping your pen stroke downwards. Practicing this daily will help you in mastering the movement of arching technique. Same goes with the cross arching, just that you have to start your next stroke from a different angle. Just have to continue that way. Then to get a more darker shade, just increase the pressure and you can move closer. So what I'm doing here is mostly, okay, I've seen, okay, we have someone joining now. Okay, welcome to Hezok University. You can kindly drop your comments to know more about this. Let's see. Okay, drop a comment so I can welcome you. So let's get back in the video. What I'm doing here is just movement from a particular angle, just a single stroke movement. When you are able to master this, then shading won't be a problem to you. Just follow the flow and don't attempt to even rush it. Then to get a darker tone, just increase the pressure. So that is just it. There is no special technique. Just have to be patient. So as you can see here, I'm achieving a dark tone just by arching. And later on, I will talk about the pen, because most beginners will ask me if there's a special pen used for this. So after this arching, the next one is the cross arching, which is just something similar. So what cross arching is, just like you have a movement like this, you have another pen stroke movement coming this way, and you have another one coming this way, then you have another one just from different direction. You just like when you want to draw a star like a plus. So this is your directions when it comes to cross arching. So just okay, let's follow this one first. Note that I'm always starting very lightly and gently. One thing I love about cross arching is you don't have to fill in most of the gap. When you make a stroke from another direction, it automatically fills in the little spaces that are left. So I'm coming in from this direction. Note my movement. I'm not moving my wrist, I'm only moving my fingers. These two fingers, these two, is the one supporting me on the paper. And I'm with the remaining two fingers and my thumb, that is what I'm moving. My wrist is not moving, it's just staying in a singular place. So that is how you master the movement. As you can see, just try this movement and see how easy it is. If this movement is not good for you, you can try to twist it, and maybe you can put it in between. I don't know if people do shade this way, but I've seen someone do that before. But the most common is this method. Just try to practice and master this movement, then the strokes will be very easy for you to make. So let's go back. I'm bringing in my stroke from here, and you can see automatically it starts blending in more. So this one thing about cross hatching is very good for making a very smooth kind of shading, as it will help you to cover up your pen strokes and make it very difficult to see. Okay, then we take our stroke from another angle. Let's say, okay, let's take this angle. Now one thing you have to do is learn to change your position of your hands so that it will be favorable for you. Then you follow the same movement. Then what I can do, that is if I still want to make more layers, I can decide to follow this movement, but it's not compulsory. But for more smoothness, I just have to do it. So this is basically what we do when we are shading with our pen. We start off with a very light shade. Then when we want to add more values to a particular place, what you do is just increase the pressure of your pen. And the movement of your hand has to be a little fast so as your strokes can be very straight and smooth enough. So I come over here, I increase the pressure. So this is basically the two techniques that are mostly used when it comes to pen shading. So now what other beginners have is that the problem most of them have is some of them know how to shade, but they don't know how to blend individual tones together. Thereby, their works look like has a demarcation line in between the light and other values. So what to do is this. Whenever you are shading with the pen, okay, let me move my paper down here. Okay. Whenever you are shading with the pen, what you do is, let's say for example, this is okay, this is one square, this is another square. Now this will represent my dark tone and this will represent my light tone, or you can rather say value. What I do is, okay, let's say this is my light and this is my dark tone. I will make sure that this middle here is what I'll use in blending both tones together. Let's say for example, and most beginners, they do start off their sketch with a very rough outline. So if you are the type that normally starts your dark tone this way, you are not doing it wrong. You can still get a good result out of something like this. So I'm going to use cross-hatching for this method. So this is my dark tone. I will try to get a smooth and good result. Okay, I try to make it smooth. Then later on, I will show you a practical example using one of my recent drawing, which I'm still working on. So you can see that it takes a lot of patience to get a good pen drawing. Okay, you can see that I started roughly with this area, and now I was able to get a good shade. And now this is for my light, which as I said earlier, I start with a very light kind of shading. This is where most beginners do have issues with trying to blend both layers together without facing any difficulty. Okay, let's say for example this is my light tone now. Now what I will do is, when I'm trying to blend this tone together, I focus more attention on the dark tone rather than the light tone, because when you focus more attention on this light tone, you are gradually losing the proportion of your shading, especially if you are doing a portrait shading. When you focus more on this light tone, you lose the balance and the shading that is given to that particular place. So what I do is I make sure that I don't go close to this light shade. Try to do something like this, a light shade also, but gradually, you can see gradually I'm getting straight into the dark tone. So I don't go close to the light tone at all. I focus more on the dark tone and try to blend it out. Make sure there is no sharp edges. So when I'm done with this, then I'll now move to the light place and give it a good shade. As you can see, there is no more sharp edges. So this is what most beginners do face, trying to blend different tones together without spoiling their work, which is very easy to do. Just have to be patient while trying to blend your strokes together. So you can see something very easy to master. Just the same movements I told you about. Okay, so after this mostly what you need to get a very good pen shade, and this is what I used to achieve this kind of result. As you can see, this is what I used to achieve this. You can see this is my cross hatching all over and trying to smooth most places. Just basically cross hatching I used for this. So what I do tell beginners is, when you see a work like this and you try to imitate it, you will not get the exact result. You have to move to your level, master the shading technique you know that you are not good at. Then when you are done mastering, take a special, let me say, any kind of paper, and just try to be brushing random strokes together until you get that movement. Your strokes might not be straight, it might be curved, but it doesn't matter. Just make sure it's very smooth. Just be mastering that movement, and can make short ones. And you are free to twist your paper most times to get the next. So you can see that it's something very easy to master. So now, after this, most beginners always ask, okay, are there special pen that are used in making this kind of drawing to make it look real and okay? What I do tell them that it's just the normal pen. So I will make a comparison right now between the normal big ballpoint pen and the normal tiny, that is all this normal writing pen, and you see that even with this you can still make a good sketch, but it won't be as good as using the big. So as you can see, this is the pen, and over here, okay, let's say over here, this is my big, and this is my ordinary pen. You can see that this ordinary pen has a very harsh kind of stroke. It's very, very, very dark on the paper. So this is movement from the big pen. And let's try the chip pen and see if it can do something like that. So what I try to do is, as you can see, there is absolutely no difference between the ballpoint pen and this ordinary one. The difference is your level of mastering the pen skill, the techniques. Once you're able to master it, you can use any pen that comes your way. As you can see, there's absolutely no difference between this ordinary chip pen and the big pen. And this is what I'm trying to tell beginner artists. It's not compulsory. Even though you don't have big pen in your locality, in your community, you can start with any pen you find yourself with. As you can see, look at this, is a very cheap pen, and it's even giving a very good result. Just using the same arching and cross arching technique. It's just that the color tone of the ordinary pen is always different from the big pen. The ordinary pen has a dark blue kind of tone, while the big has a light blue. And if we use both in a single work, there will be a lot of differences because the colors will stand alone. So as you can see, it even gave a very, very good shade. So beginners, what I'm telling you right now is either you use a ballpoint pen or a cheap one, you still have the same result. You have to master your level of pen shading and movement from your hand. Then any pen that comes away will be very easy for you to use. So the next is the type of paper, and this is where you have to be careful with the type of paper you choose when it comes to pen drawing. So this paper I'm using right here to demonstrate this practice is the Pelican paper. This Pelican paper, this is the side for drawing, and it has a slippery back. As you can see, it has a slippery texture at the back where you can't use, and it's very light. It's a very light paper, and it's very suitable for pen drawing. The next is, okay, the Pelican paper. I used the Pelican paper for this work, and it gave me a kind of good result. And this is Pelican. Let me bring it closer. You can see my shade. You can see. So this is Pelican paper. It has a very smooth surface. The next is, that is the needlepoint paper. Another type of needlepoint paper which has dots is a rough textured paper. So this is the needlepoint paper. I don't know if you can see it from the screen. It's a rough paper, but it's not visible from my phone camera here. But I hope you see. Okay, let me just make a stroke from it. This kind of paper is very suitable for cheap pen. When you're using rough paper, it's very easy to use the cheap pen because you will enjoy it more. The ballpoint pen tends to stop working on this kind of rough texture, which will give you a very difficult time. But the ordinary one is very easy, especially when you are the type that does scribbling a lot. So this is the needlepoint paper, and it has a very, very rough texture. So this is another paper that is very suitable for pen strokes, as it will give you this kind of skin textured strokes, and at the back is a smooth surface which you can also use for drawing, but it's mostly suitable for pencil artists, while the rough side is suitable for pen artists. You can also use pencil on this, but it always makes more sense when you use the pen on this kind of paper. So another paper is the fine line. This paper is, I don't know if it's very common. If most of you know Ebuka pen on YouTube, he uses this paper a lot. You can see the texture. It has kind of lines. It's also called needlepoint also, but most people know it as fine line. It has lines all over, and Ebuka uses this kind of paper a lot with a tiny tip pen where he used to scribble to make his artwork. So I recommend this paper. It's a very, very, very nice paper. I used the paper to make one of okay, let's go on. Okay, I used the paper to make one of this artwork which I'm still working on right now. So this is an artwork I'm working on right now. As you can see, I used the needlepoint paper, that is the fine line paper, the other type of paper for this particular artwork. And paper play a very crucial role when it comes to shading with your pen. The kind of paper you purchase is what will give a very good result. And if you notice that this kind of paper I just showed you has a very bright and white texture. It's very white. The pelican, the fine line, and the needle point. This is the needle point. You can see that they both have almost the same colors. But the one I use the most, okay, for this needle point, I used it for this particular work. And if you see, you can see the texture of the needle point paper. It has a kind of tiny circles in between. So this is the texture of a needle point paper, and give this kind of stroke when you are shading with it. As you can see, this is the texture of the needle point paper. So this is what I use for this particular work. And the most recommended that I always recommend to most artists is the FBB paper. The FBB paper has a kind of dull white look. It isn't too bright and isn't too dark. So this is the FBB paper. It's very smooth and very thick with a slippery back also. So I usually do recommend the FBB paper a lot to most beginners, as it will help grow your skill to a very good height in a short period of time. So another question I got is how to avoid particular mistakes when it comes to pen drawing. So the mistakes most artists do is that when they tend to shade, before you shade on a paper, you have to get something like a tissue paper. I use this a lot. Then you clean the tip of your pen before attempting to even shade on paper. If not, you will have this kind of dark pen ink on your paper, and it won't give you a nice. As you can see, anytime you clean your pen on a separate tissue paper and you start shading, it will give you this easy application instantly. You don't have to like scratch the pen before start using it. And another mistake is when beginner artists tend to use pen to shade, you just go in with one pen. No, you don't have to do that. You have to have like a minimum of 4 pen. Minimum of 4 and maximum as many as you want. But at least have a minimum of 4 to 5 pen. As you can see, these are all the pen I use for my works. When one is over bleeding, I switch to another one. So what I do is, the ones that the ink are still full, I know that this ones has the tendency of shading very light and won't bleed much. But when I've overused a particular pen, like this one, I've used this one to the level, and if you notice, when I tend to make a stroke with this one, it gives me a light stroke, but this one tends to give me a darker and it bleeds more. So when I use this one to make a shade, it will give me a messy result because it bleeds a lot, and I use this only for very dark areas. As you can see, I'm applying just a very light shade, but it's giving me very dark tone. That is one thing you have to be careful of. When you have used the pen to a particular level, you have to change to another pen to avoid overbleeding. And now I haven't even started using it. You can see it's already bleeding from the tip. So that is it. You have to have at least minimum of 4 to 5 different ballpoint pens and switch in between them like every 10 minutes of usage to avoid ink stains or over bleeding on a particular area. So I will proceed to showing you a practical example of how this shading is being done. So I'm working on a particular drawing that is Juice World, which I'm going to upload very soon. When I'm done with it, I'll upload the full tutorial video when I'm done with it. So I'm going to make a shading example with the right eye. And before you start shading, it's either you get a paper to put on your work before shading, or you use one of these artist gloves. I can see this one is from a company called Bosto, to prevent smudges on the paper. So I'm going to zoom into this. Okay. So what I will do is, let me try to get a close-up shot. And try to get a close-up shot. Okay, I think this is okay. Then what I do is go over to my reference. Now I'm going to show you my reference. Now this is my reference, and I kind of edit it with Canva to make this kind of reference. So what I do is I grade according to what I have on my drawing already. So I use a 30 by 30 square grading here. So as you can see, this is the part I just finished with, which is here, and I'm moving over to the right eye. So this is my right eye. Then I try to reduce the visibility of the grid so that I can see my reference well. So this is what we are going to work on today to show you an example. Okay, I can see Simsi Olowo Joba. Okay, welcome to Hezok University. If you have any question, you can kindly drop it in the comment section down below. So now, then I move to as I said earlier, you clean the tip of your pen on the paper or with a tissue paper. So So now what I do is I start off with the eyeball. I make a sketch of the eyeball, then okay. Or maybe let's shade the nose instead, as I'm almost done with that particular area. So what I do is I follow my reference. Let's say for example this is my reference, this is the nose. This is the nose. So I try to zoom in and get a good. So what I do is I follow my grid. Okay, this is where my eyelid stopped. Then I move towards where my dark shade and the light shade comes together. So what I do is I try to, okay, this is where, then I move over to this place. I kind of make a rough representation. Okay, then this is where my dark shade stop. So what I do is I just start off randomly. Sorry about that. Use this as a reference to show you how this works. So stay tuned. I'll be able to make another live session later on today. Thank you.